With the Fairy Tail 100-Year Quest anime finally here, you probably have some questions about the 5 dragon gods that Team Natsu will be facing in the sequel story to Fairy Tail. Who are they? What are their powers? How strong are they compared to acnologia? And probably a bunch of other questions. That's why in today's newest Anime Explained video, we're going to tell you everything that you need to know about the 5 dragon gods of Fairy Tail. As always, this video will contain some spoilers, but like usual, we'll keep this limited only to what you need to know in order to understand each character, from their powers and the personalities, and keep everything to just a bare minimum of what you absolutely need for each of these characters. The first thing you need to know is that the 5 dragon gods actually started out as the 6 dragon gods. They are from the northern continent, and each of the remaining 5 dragon gods are strong enough to rival acnologia in power, and depending on how you scale some of them, their power greatly surpasses acnologia, but we'll talk about that later on. The next thing that you need to know is that the dragon gods, they fled to the northern continent in the past in order to escape acnologia. As we all know, acnologia was an absolute badass, so they fled from that continent, but as they stayed tucked away into the northern continent, their power, it continued to grow by leaps and bounds, with some of them having clear scaling that blows acnologia out the water in terms of the power. The reason why they are called gods is because of the fact that their overwhelming power just put total fear into the hearts of the humans on this continent. They carried out misdeeds, and they possessed an insane amount of power that no human could ever hope to rival, and even the weakest of the dragon gods was so powerful that it was just understood that this weak link wasn't really a weak link at all. It's due to the massive amount of power that each of them possesses that they chose to stay separated to avoid fighting, because massive fighting between them could lead to a calamity. Though, as we'll get into later, some of these dragon gods have beef with one another. It's due to the low profile that they kept. Nobody knew about them during the Dragon King Festival, the war between the dragons and the dragon slayers. Due to the fact they kept their distance from one another, they don't know 100% every small detail about one another or their primary locations at the time of the series. When you watch the first few episodes of the anime and you hear about the 5 dragon gods, your reaction might be to go, well, they are a group fighting together, like say the admirals from One Piece and the Akatsuki from Naruto and the Espada from Bleach. And if you're thinking that, you're wrong, and I find that a bit refreshing. Each of them in the story is strongly implied to possess mastery over transformation magic, which allows them to transform into humans and retain a considerable amount of their power from their dragon forms. This is a pretty big deal because it's not too common for dragons to transform into humans. Like, take for instance Ignia. He never used transformation magic, but his son Ignia can. The whole reason for the 100-Year Quest is that over the span of 160 years, there have been 98 failed attempts to kill dragon gods, and this was the mission that we saw Gildarts get critically injured when he fought acnologia, which that's just bad luck for him, or good luck depending on how you view it, because he misidentified acnologia as a dragon god. While he might have escaped with his life, based on the powers of the other dragon gods that we see, he certainly would have been killed if he came into contact with them back then. So now that you know the rough history of the dragon gods, let's go into each of them as individuals in the story itself. So starting things off, we're going to be going with one of my personal favorites, and the dragon god that Natsu is most interested in, and the one who very early on in the series should grab your attention, Ignia. Unlike Natsu, Ignia is indeed Ignia's true son, being his biological son. He himself wants all the smoke with Natsu because he learned that Natsu and some of the other dragon slayers, they took down acnologia, so he wants to test his strength against Natsu. But as Natsu is at the start of the 100-Year Quest, his power is nowhere near Ignia's level of power, even while he's in his human form. In his dragon form, he looks very much like his father. He's got those red scales and he's got the horn-tipped nose, much like his father. In his human form, he takes on the appearance of a total Chad with these bulging muscles and the bandages over his forearm. He's arrogant and he's quick to talk down to someone, as you expect with someone who's been this powerful and unrivaled for this long. He thrives off the prospect of testing himself in battle, and if it means endangering innocent people, the guy, he doesn't care as long as he gets a chance to fight. In the past, he's casually burned up entire countries, and when he's trying to get Natsu all worked up, the guy isn't above using his sharp words and his actions, directing them at the fairy tale mages on Natsu's team in order to get Natsu angry enough to fight. Even when he learns of his father's death, his selfish demeanor, it stays in check. He only cares about himself, or so it seems. His mother, she's a relative unknown, which that makes a lot of sense given that with dragons, as soon as the kids are born, the mother, she takes them away and she raises the child alone away from the father. As we know, all we really know in this series is that he escaped to the northern continent 400 years ago to hide from acnologia, and by the time that Natsu shows up on the continent, he's already greatly surpassed acnologia in power, which goes to obvious reason that he's several times stronger than his father Ignia, and he's even deadlier in combat, being able to make great pillars of fire that fall down from the sky and burn whatever they hit. Just by releasing his power, he burned Ermia town, which is the small port town by the sea, and he turned it into flames just on flexing his power. When Natsu tries to attack him, Ignia neg diffs him with the attack, and when he shares some of his power with Natsu, it's so intense that Natsu's body can't even fully contain the flames, and Lucy ends up getting herself harmed trying to rein in Natsu because of the effect that that magic's having on his body. Next up, we have Mercphobia, the water dragon god. Another one we'll meet very early on in the series. He should be the first dragon god that you meet in the anime. Unlike Ignia, Mercphobia is not really 100% bad guy. The people of his city, they worship him as a god because he protects his citizens there, and like Ignia, who grew a fondness to Natsu, he too has a fondness for a human that he has a strong attachment to, the human girl named KRYPTONIAN. That's not to say that he's always a good guy. He's admitted himself that he's killed more than his fair share of humans in the past. In his dragon form, he takes on the appearance of a sea serpent. In his human form, he wears a dark coat and pirate boots to fit in with the theme of being out there by the sea. The big thing with him is that as long as you remain on his good side, you don't really have much to worry about, but if he views you as someone with ill intentions, he can and he will turn on you and attack you. The people under his rule, he takes good care of them, where they are all turned into fish in order to ensure that they survive when the town is submerged in water at night. He isn't 100% good, nor is he 100% evil. He's just someone who views coexistence with humans as the ideal path moving forward, but the sad thing about him is that his powers are the very reason that the people who worship him, the people he protects, they're in danger. His attitude towards humans, it begins to shift when he meets KRYPTONIAN, who at the time was shipwrecked, and so he took her in and raised her. When his powers unleashed, is quite formidable, with the members of Team Natsu having a tough time against his dragon form. This is even more impressive when you realize that a few of those members of Team Natsu, they're amped up by Dragon Slayer enchantments, and even when Natsu hits him with the Fire Dragon God Amp Dragon Force, the guy is still able to keep going, but his durability does get lowered as the fight continues. As time has gone on, he's been shown being unable to contain his magic power in terms of controlling it, which places the entire port town underwater, which plays a part in his character arc and some of the guilt that he feels, and also how he changes the perception of some of the members of Team Natsu in terms of how they view him. Due to the wings that he possesses, he can fly through the air, he can dispel magic attacks without much difficulty, and his water dragon magic, it can make barriers, it can move chunks of water into the sky, it can make water pillar, he can split the ocean, he can use his water dragon's roar to outright dog out Natsu's fire dragon's king's roar when it's used. Next up, we have Selene, one of my favorite characters in Fairy Tail 100, the only female of the dragon gods. She's known as the moon dragon god, and her powers, they directly revolve around the stars and the moon, and she is known as the dragon that can cross dimensions. Her motive is to destroy the dragon gods, and she isn't above crossing lines in order to do so, telling the priestess that she came into contact with that she needs to destroy the dragon gods and reduce the power of Earthland. She possesses a few types of magic, from moon dragon slayer magic to spatial magic and telepathy. She is also the guild master of the Diablos Guild, a guild of 5th generation dragon slayers who are known as dragon eaters. Video coming soon on that. In her dragon form, she takes on the appearance of a super long length dragon with white fur on her neck and black fur on other parts of her body. In her human form, she is every bit what you'd expect from a Hiro Mashima designed female. She is super curvy and she is super attractive. Selene first came to the continent to hide from acnologia, but After a while, she slowly developed a love for humans and even eventually wanted to become a human herself, and it was because of this desire and her understanding that a war with the other dragon gods, it was a no-win situation for everyone involved. It led to her seeking an alternative method in order to achieve the goal that she wants. So she began using her magic to travel between dimensions to other worlds in the hopes of finding weapons strong enough to kill the other dragon gods. Her desire to wipe out the other dragon gods, it runs so deep to the point that she threatens the priestess to wipe out the dragon gods and reduce the magic on Earthland, or else she will conquer the parallel land to Edalis and Earthland, which is known as the critical magic world Elentar, which is a really big deal. This land has the most overflowing magic of all of the dimensions, and she takes a liking to it on top of that. Her moon dragon slayer magic allows her to make things around her appear as if they're in the setting of nighttime. She has her own fake moon, and when she uses it, the power, it transfers her enemies to other dimensions or to better focus the attacks on her targets. When she uses relocation, she makes an orb of galactic matter that sends her enemies to whatever predetermined location is picked out. Moonlight Palm has her shoot out a blast of moonlight at her target. Moonlight Blade lets her shoot off several crescent moonlight blades at her enemies, moving at super fast speeds that makes it very hard to avoid. Moonlight Configuration lets her make a spiral of flames to burn at her enemies. Moonlight Butterfly lets her make butterflies that do massive amounts of damage on the people that's hit by it. With her superhuman power, we've seen her outright crush guild masters with ease and tank one of Natsu's attacks like it's nothing. She's taken powerful attacks from Ignia, who is much stronger than Natsu, and despite the enormous amount of damage that is taken, she still keeps on fighting back in the battle. As it goes on, we see that she's taken lethal attacks that would have killed someone else had they been in her position. She is every bit as powerful as you would expect from someone who is stronger than acnologia himself. Up next, we have Aldoron, the biggest dragon god, and one of the ones that we'll meet in season 1, depending on how many episodes the first season is. This guy is so huge that he can literally be confused with being a large city, and in fact, the members of Team Natsu, they are shocked to learn that the city that they thought they were visiting was actually the guy's body. He is the wood dragon god, and his power is split up between 5 orbs. He appears to be asleep when we meet him, and it's for a really good reason. He was still recovering from the battle he had with acnologia a few hundred years ago. The way in which he was recovering is by absorbing the nutrients of the citizens who live on the cities that make up the various parts of his body. His magic powers, as previously stated, allow him to absorb life force of humans to help sustain himself and recover from his enemies, and it eventually turns them into trees. His god seed creation lets him make 5 orbs that are tucked away at various parts of his body, which are protected, and if they are destroyed, the god seeds will eventually revive. Each of the god seeds contain a portion of his power. He also has the ability to read minds using telepathy. His wood dragon magic lets him make multiple trees to shoot them out at his targets and destroy them with immense force, and he can also make sharp thorns from all parts of his body, which shoot out like projectiles that can skewer whoever he's aiming at. His stamina is just downright insane, in the fact that Natsu's Fire Dragon King Destruction Fist barely did any damage, and Natsu, he gets told that he needs to land 99,999,999 more hits in order to do more damage in order to defeat him. Even when Gajio jumps into the fray to attack, it does no damage. If it weren't for his god seeds, his power, it will be out of control. Unlike the other dragon gods who we met, we don't see him take on a human appearance. Now, Vierenes is up next, the gold dragon god, who basically does his own thing for the most part, but is someone you should keep your eyes on. He infuses his will and his being into the Gold Owl Guild headquarters and becomes its master. His primary goal is to be able to stand toe-to-toe with Athena, who was originally made for the purpose of destroying the dragon gods. The way that this is gone about is he'll make alchemist dolls, some scratch, or humans, or he'll even go as far as to brainwash them if it comes down to it. His Gold Slayer magic lets him fire off the Gold Dragon's Roar, which shoots out a powerful blast where anything hit by it will get turned into gold upon impact. Gold Rain allows him to make these heavy gold coins that come falling from the sky. to crush those people and objects they fall upon. The expression is raining money is taking on a new meaning here. He is, as expected, pretty powerful, strong enough that Natsu on his own couldn't dish out meaningful damage until the rest of the guild gave him power. Sadly, this isn't a character that's around for a terribly long period of time, even compared to the other dragon gods we see, so there isn't a ton to look at here, so we'll move on to the next dragon god. So up next, we had Dogromon, the weakest of the dragon gods back when they were known as the 6 dragon gods. He was the earth dragon god. His magic was so powerful that even after he was defeated, it created an eternal maze that was named after him, and it's an attraction for adventurers to make their way through it in the hopes of coming back with riches. Back before his defeat, he was on really good terms with Ignia, referring to him as being like a brother, and Ignia himself states that he was his only one true friend that he ever had. He's extremely perceptive, being able to read Natsu like an open book and find out his weaknesses in terms of his friends being a major thumbscrew for him, which leads to him mocking Natsu after telling him that his friends, they'd be killed in Eden. When he battles Natsu, his very first attack sends Natsu flying as a result, and he goes on to tank a few more of Natsu's attacks. His combat speed is pretty insane, being able to blitz Natsu, who was locked on and running towards him for an attack, and he hit Natsu while moving at such high speeds that it sends Natsu flying as a result. Natsu's Fire Dragon's fist did no damage to him when he does get hit by it at first. Despite being the weakest of the dragon gods, he is still somewhat equal, if not slightly stronger than Acnologia, to give you a ballpark for how strong he is. His hand-to-hand combat skill is on a completely different level, able to hold off a 2 versus 1 battle, and one of the people who was fighting was an all-time fired up Natsu. He possesses both Earth Dragon Slayer magic as well as Law Dragon Slayer magic, which the latter allowed him to gain dominion over the attribute of law and the knowledge of the magic world, giving him access to information that humans in the current era they are unaware of, because as the expression goes, magic is power. His Dragon Slayer magic uses earth and is nearly indestructible. Earth Dragon God's Zikatora makes earth rocks levitate in the air before getting sent out in droves to attack his enemy from afar. He can also cover his arm with rocks to reinforce the damage that he throws out when he's punching someone. He can also use this magic when he's transformed into his dragon god form, where he's able to stomp people into the ground. He buries them so deep into the ground and traps them that they will eventually suffocate. While that might be a cruel way to kill others, it is very fitting given everything we're told at first about the dragon gods themselves. In terms of the dragon gods, we again kept this one brief and we didn't go over any major spoilers, but this won't be the last fairy tale video we do here on the channel, since the 100-year quest anime is finally out after 2 long years of waiting, and I now have an excuse to start making fairy tale content again, since it's been a few years since I've done fairy tale content. Keep your eyes peeled for the every Dragon Slayer video that's going to be coming here soon on the channel, and in the meantime, click here to watch more videos from Anime Explained, which I'll update the end screen later on once we have more fairy tale content for you guys to check out.